Okay, Jacob Gluck, how you doing? You just wrote a book called Hasidopedia. Tell me more about it.
Sure. So the book is a comprehensive expose/documentary about Haredi culture in general and the Satmar sect within Hasidism in particular. So I go through every aspect of the culture as it is practiced in the 21st century, and I present them to an outside audience. You don't necessarily have to be familiar with have prior knowledge about the Hasidic culture, and I present that to them, to my readers, in a organized way and explain everything to my readers.
Excellent. That sounds so interesting. Now, what inspired you to write the book, and what makes you qualified for that task?
Good question. So what inspired me was I used to do what's called I called it the educational walking tour. So I used to run a project like that between 2011 and 2014.
Was that in Brooklyn?
That was in Williamsburg. It was Hasidic Williamsburg walking tour. And some of my clients/customers would ask me, you should write a book on this. And why don't you do that? And didn't take them that seriously at the time, but over the years, it dawned on me that would actually be helpful, because there isn't currently a book in the market that is up to date and is written by an insider, which answers your other question, which is what makes me qualified. Well, I did grow up in the community. I grew up within the Satmar sect in Borough Park, not in Williamsburg, but still, the differences are relatively minor. And I used to go to Williamsburg, from time to time, sporadically. So I was intimately familiar with the culture, and so that brings readers who are interested in this topic. It brings them a perspective, an insider's perspective, to these questions that has hitherto not been presented.
Okay, so how is your book different than the other books currently available on the topic?
Yeah, so I kind of alluded to that in the previous question, that the current books in the market were written from outsiders. Now, they were scholars, they studied the matter, but they are not within the community. They didn't grow up within the community, and it's not a first account. And it is also out of date, because most of the books were written in the 60s, 70s. There's George Kranzler, there's Solomon Pohl, and there is also Jerome Mintz, among others. There are also, of course, autobiographies/memoirs, plenty of them, but they do not cover everything, and they kind of try to present things in an attractive way, in a narrative form, which is not what I'm doing. And of course, there is room in the market for that, and I appreciate what they have done. But what I'm doing is different, and it serves the market in a different way.
Jacob, who is your intended readership, and how do you think your book is going to be received?
Good question. So my intended readership is mostly people who are interested in Judaism in general, in Hasidism, Haredi culture. There is a possibility, not a possibility, but there's a likelihood that people from within the community will also read it, but I don't count on that. And of course, most of the material they already know, so there would be no use for them. But it's mostly people who are curious about Hasidic culture, Haredi culture, and Jewish culture in general. What was the other question? How it's going to be received? Well, there is a tone in the book that is critical, especially tracing certain practices back to their origin. So that could possibly be controversial. And so I'm expecting to get some flack about that aspect of the book. But that's just it comes with the territory. I wanted to make the book dynamic. I didn't want to just present the facts as they are. I also wanted to trace the origin of those practices. And so there will probably be some criticism, which is fine. But I do think that even the critics could benefit from some aspects of the book, which even they would agree on.
Yeah, okay. So this is volume 2. That's what it says on the book. Are there any additional books on the topic in the pipeline right now?
Absolutely, there are. So there will be a volume 1. Don't ask me why volume 1 didn't come out first, but the volume 1 will cover general practices. The volume 2, which I present to you now, is the calendar cycle, so it covers all the events, the holidays, how the Shabbos is practiced. And the upcoming volume, which is going to be titled Volume 1, is going to cover especially the life cycle, but possibly will also go into general practices. And if I can't fit that into Volume 1, then there will be a third volume which will cover the remaining practices and possibly a glossary as well.
Oh, that sounds so interesting. Can't wait for those to come out. Now, we're going to go to question number 7. Is there anything else that you want readers to know right now?
What I want readers to know is that this was not written from a survey/scholarly methodology. So I did not survey people. Like, for example, in the book, you'll see a lot of percentages. You'll see like 70% of the people do this and 20% of the people do that. Just ignore the precise numbers because they're just based on impression. My impression and the impression of my sources. By the way, just so you know, it was not written merely based on my experience, but I had informants that brought me up to date as to how things are practiced currently, because I left the community 20 years ago. I want them to be cognizant of the fact that that it is written from an experiential point of view, what I experienced, what close informants that are still in the community have related to me of how things are done in recent years after I've left the community. But it's not necessarily authoritative every single tittle and every detail in the book. So just keep that in mind. I'm guiding you / the reader in the general direction, but just don't criticize me on every single little thing.
Yeah, well, that was very helpful. Okay, someone wants to buy the book. Where can they get Hasidic?
Amazon. Where do you go for books these days? So Amazon is your source. Just search Hasidopedia or search Jacob Gluck, and it will come up. It is available both in Kindle / ebook format and is available in hardcover right now as well.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Jacob.
You're welcome.